This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
It's Golden Sense in full flight for the wire over Flashback, and Golden Sense have won the Santa Ana Derby.
Orb has won the Kentucky Derby. First of the game. Will take charges surging, and it's a photo finish. It's too close to call. And Animal Kingdom wins the Dubai World Cup. Macho Man!
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Wednesday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us. And I also want to thank the folks who filled in for me for the last week and a half or so. Appreciate that. But I'm back in the chair. Happy to be here because we are in the midst of a Triple Crown run. We're less than 3 weeks away from California Chrome showing up at Belmont Park, facing some new shooters and some old shooters, and going for a Triple Crown. I'm sure there will be a huge crowd. We'll have 3 weeks of real build-up. Should be fun here on the show as well to talk to folks about it. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and as I say, happy to be here back in the saddle for all of that. Speaking of Belmont Stakes Day, do want to remind folks right down here at the Clubhouse Racebook, you can make reservations. I'm sure we're going to have a big crowd down here rooting for a Triple Crown. $5 gets you, if you make a Belmont Day reservation for $5 down here at the Clubhouse Racebook, get you admission, get you a $1 win bet on California Chrome, a photo of California Chrome, and a Belmont Stakes glass. So $5, you get a little swag to help make you happy. Also, do want to remind you, Bet 50 Get 50 promotion continues this month. If you become a new Capital Bets account holder before the end of the month, as soon as you bet $50 into your new account, Capital OTB puts $50 back in on them, so free money. So that's a nice promotion. And I'll tell you some of the other events that are coming up during the month as well. Friday the 23rd coming up, it's the grand reopening of the Queensberry branch. On Saturday the 24th, there is a Showviver contest. There will also be a knockout challenge down here at the Clubhouse Racebook on Saturday the 24th. On the 30th, Friday the 30th, a $100 knockout challenge. And on the 31st, a Showviver contest and the grand opening of the Old Log Inn Easy Bet location. And as always, you can pop on to capitalotb.com to get caught up on all the promotions and events here at Capital OTB, both the racebook, the branches, and the website. Some of the news over the past 24 hours, some bad news as far as Danza. If you're a Danza fan, Danza will not make it to the Belmont Stakes. Danza troubled third in the Kentucky Derby. They chose to pass the Preakness and head to the Belmont. I'm sure a lot of folks were looking forward to taking a shot with Danza, the Arkansas Derby winner. I'm a Danza fan, but Todd Pletcher, the horse came out of a workout over the, on May 18th. Pletcher said Danza worked very well, but Pletcher subsequently wasn't happy with the way the horse worked, and he must not have been, because now the horse will be sent to the Payson Training Center in Ocala for some diagnostics and time off. And these are always the kind of situations where you wonder when we will see the horse, because horse works well, but then gets sent to Florida for diagnostics, so we'll see. But Danza out of the Belmont Stakes. We'll see how soon, if and when, Danza makes it back. But scratch Danza from your early Belmont Stakes thoughts. Some news that actually has been bubbling over the past few days. Since I haven't been in here, I haven't had a chance to talk about it, but the president of the Maryland Jockey Club, Tom Chuckus, mentioned it last week. He reiterated again in a press conference, a post-Preakness press conference on Monday, that he is pushing for a change in the calendar as far as the Triple Crown. And he's quoted as saying, I respect, and again, this is the president of the Maryland Jockey Club, I respect tradition, but I also think tradition cannot impede the growth or betterment of the industry. He says if you take a look at the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL, all of them have gone through transformations with wild card additions and scheduling changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think there is a real kind of fire starting to brew now as far as changing the dates of the Triple Crown. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few months. And it will be very interesting over the next 3 weeks, certainly, because there have been some subsequent columns. Dick Girardi wrote a column about this, and he says, once upon a time I was opposed to the change. He says, I changed my mind a few years ago. The whole sport has changed dramatically in the last decade. Horses don't race as much. The very top class horses almost never run back in 2 weeks, except for Derby to Preakness. Top class horses don't run 3 times in 5 weeks. And so you get guys like Girardi mentioning this. Some of the follow-up articles, though, did also make the case that you're not going to change the first Saturday in May. That's the tradition. Churchill isn't going to change that. Now you have Pimlico saying they're willing to change, but Martin Pienza came in fairly recently to New York and revamped Belmont Stakes Day to make that really one of the big racing days in America it's shaping up to be. So now are they going to be willing to move? So there's a lot of moving parts here, but there does seem to be, as I say, a little bit of a groundswell that maybe it's getting to be time. I'm kind of with Girardi. At one time I was against it for tradition. I can still make that argument, but I wouldn't be as much against a change now as I may have been in the past. So we'll see. Again, it's brewing that maybe it's time to start rethinking the Triple Crown and that 5-week schedule. But it also will be interesting. And again, I have most of this, all of this, I think, linked on Equidaily if you want to follow what some of the pundits are saying about this as well. And one of the articles I read made the point, I think it was Bob Ehalt, in fact, who we've had on the show on ESPN, said it's going to be very interesting, the results of the Belmont. Because if it's anybody other than California Chrome or Ride on Curlin, a couple of horses that went through the entire 3-race series, if it's anyone other than those 2 horses, then again, that will make this, this groundswell even more to maybe change up the dates. On the flip side, if California Chrome wins, then does this quiet down? Do people say, well, it can be done, and maybe we're making too much about this, and maybe we'll keep the tradition? So it'll be interesting to see, again, how this starts to play out over the next 3 weeks. And if California Chrome does happen to lose, well, either way, really, then what we hear subsequently in the next couple of months, whether this, the drumbeat does continue to change up the Triple Crown calendar. Revolutionary, who won over the weekend at Pimlico, won Friday at the Pimlico Special, 106 buyer figure. They have said, Todd Pletcher says his next likely start will be in the Grade 1 Stephen Foster down at Churchill Downs on June 14th. Pletcher likes the placement on the calendar there. Why does he like it? Thumbs up for us here at Saratoga. He likes it because it puts him in a very good spot for the $1.5 million Whitney handicap right here in Saratoga on August 2nd. So he'll come out of the Pimlico Special this past Friday, aim for the June 14th Stephen Foster, Grade 1 $500,000, and then Grade 1 $1.5 million Whitney potentially on August 2nd. So that looks good. Subsequently, Pletcher is also lining up potential for the Black-Eyed Susan winner, Stop Charging Maria. They're going to consider both the Acorn on June 7th and the Mother Goose on June 28th. Those same races are being considered also for My Miss Sophia, who was the Kentucky Oaks runner-up. Kauai Katie, who ran over the weekend in New York for Pletcher and really threw in a dud in the vagrancy, was found to have a case of the thumps, which according to the Grenig Racing Form article, typically caused by an electrolyte imbalance. Pletcher says, obviously, has to think that affected her performance, but we'll see what's next for her. But it does seem now that there's an explanation for that dud thrown by Quai Katie over the weekend. And Havana, last year's Champagne winner for Pletcher, worked 49.4 on Monday, and he's being pointed to the Woody Stevens on Belmont Stakes Day. So that'll be next for Havana. Always like to look at the polls as they come out and what the pundits say, particularly after big weekends like this, to see if things changed up. And Mike Watchmaker's Watchmaker Watch weekly divisional ratings on the 3-year-old male side. He has now added Ride on Curlin to his top 10, popping Ride on Curlin into number 8. My own personal poll, I'm an ESPN poll voter. I have moved Ride on Curlin up. I think I have Ride on Curlin, second now. So I have a California Chrome Ride on Curlin. Watchmaker moved Ride on Curlin into the 8th spot. And on the female side, added Stop Charging Maria off the Black Eyed Susan win on the 3-year-old female side. Moved into his list at number 10 now. So weekend results did affect things a little bit on some of the pundits' polls. The NTRA poll came out also. We'll talk a little bit about that either later, or I'll get to that tomorrow. But in the meantime, before we go to the break, I did want to show a couple of races that otherwise I thought we might not get a chance to look at this week. And just a couple of races that are a little bit interesting with the stories and the horses and whatnot. Wanted to go back to the Miss Preakness on Friday at Pimlico on the undercard of the Black Eyed Susan, and here we go. Here's the stretch run. You're going to watch the number 4, Misbehavior, win pretty easily in here. And I wanted to show this one because Misbehavior, the Phil Schoenthal trained horse that started the career so nicely last year. Won the career debut at Parks in July last year as a 2-year-old, followed up and won the sorority, came over to Belmont and won the matron, and then subsequently was in the Sharp Cat and ran an okay second, went down to the Delta Princess and ran a poor fifth, to end the season. So this was a horse that had shown a nice 2-year-old filly, Misbehavior, had shown a lot of nice early promise, and then that Delta Princess, a 5th place finish, just ended the season maybe on the wrong note. Came back on April 19th in a turf sprint at Pimlico and ran 3rd. But subsequently, it was either Dave Rodman or Frank Vespi we had on the show right after that. And they said they talked to Phil Schoenthal, and that turf sprint Schoenthal felt was just, let's just get some fitness. This isn't really our game, but we're going to get the horse out there and get her going. She'll be better in the next start. And that, what we saw was the next start. So she comes back at 6 furlongs in the Miss Preakness on Friday and wins nicely. So it looks like Misbehavior, who again started the season so nicely last year as a 2-year-old filly, back on track now as a 3-year-old filly. So I just wanted to show you that one because I think she'll be a nice player in the 3-year-old filly division, maybe the 3-year-old filly sprint subdivision, Misbehavior. But I also wanted to show you the stakes race from Gulfstream Park on Saturday. Just a little $75,000 stakes race, but it was the seasonal debut of Little Mike. And Little Mike is the horse that, of course, won the Breeders' Cup Turf in 2012 for Dale Romans. Last year wound up 7th in the Breeders' Cup Turf, subsequently went over to Hong Kong and finished 9th in the Hong Kong Cup. And the owner, Carl Vaccarezza, took over training from Dale Romans. This is Little Mike winning on Saturday in the seasonal debut. Was going to start on Derby weekend at Churchill Downs. There was some controversy between the owner and the Churchill regulators about some out-of-competition testing that was done. Subsequently, Vaccarezza pulled the horse out of that Churchill race on Derby weekend. But Little Mike does get back to the races, and as you saw there, got back to the races in a winning way. And a little $75,000 stake on Saturday down at Gulfstream. The Flying Pigeon, mile and a 16th on the grass. Little Mike wins by just about 2 3/4 lengths as the 4 to 5 favorite. So again, that was the first start since moving out of the Dale Romans barn. And, you know, it's always hard to tell just reading if they're playing to the press or whatnot, but from what was written, Carl Vaccarez and Dale Romans, it was an amicable split. Carl Vaccarez, I guess, was an owner who took a lot of interest in the training, and so when there was discussions, Dale Romans said, "Why don't you just, you're very knowledgeable about this, take over the horse yourself," and so that's what happened again, according to what was written. So it was said to be an amicable split, but the horse is now being trained by Carl Vaccarez, essentially the owner, although Priscilla Vaccarez, perhaps his wife, is listed officially as the owner. But Little Mike back on track in the seasonal debut. We'll see what's up next for him. All right, we're going to head to our first break. When we come back, our regular Wednesday visit from Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com, Night School. We'll talk some stakes action over the weekend, specifically 3-year-olds. And then a little later on, Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand Racing. We'll get some thoughts on Indiana Grand and their card for this afternoon. All of that right after this.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTV.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTV.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the King of the Hill on June 14th. So sign up today, online at CapitalOTB.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at CapitalOTB.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by Jeremy Plonk, horseplayernow.com and Night School. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, Seth. My favorite weekday of the week.
There you go. I appreciate that. And favorite time of the year, I imagine, too, now that we're on the way to the Triple Crown, because next 3 weeks it's going to be all California Chrome all the time. It's already started on the Equidaily site as I put the stories together. I'd say 90% of the horse racing stories out there are California Chrome and the Triple Crown try. So it's going to be very exciting. We'll talk a little Preakness in a moment. As always, though, do like to give you a chance to go over last night's Night School for folks who didn't get a chance to do it. If they want to pop over to the archive, looked like a very interesting topic last night, trainers and trainer angles.
It was, and we had 2 very outspoken and well-spoken trainers in the game, and successful trainers in Tom Proctor and Ron Ellis join us as guest instructors last night, joined Steve Vick, Caton Brador, and myself on our panel, and they were very forthright. They gave good answers. They gave some practical applications that fans can see from afar and try to apply them to their horse playing. So it wasn't a session in how to train a horse. It was how to evaluate the trainers of race horses. And I thought those guys last night did a great job in being honest and talking about, when they're reaching for something and think that it'll work, and other times when they really know that it's going to work. And if you go back and listen to that archive and read the chat, I think you're going to learn a lot. Last night's archive is embedded back in the body of the chat. So if you open that chat box at horseplayernow.com on the Night School link, open the chat box right at the very top. You can go back and listen to the full 90-minute radio broadcast.
Sounds good. And again, trainers and trainer angles is something that I pay attention to, particularly. Obviously, we're right up here in the neighborhood of Saratoga, and I think trainer intent at Saratoga is significant, it's particularly these boutique meets where I think guys want to win. And so there are certain trainers to me that aim for the meet, and there's certain trainers that have maybe specialties that you can even jump on a little bit. And so I would certainly recommend that. The archive and check it out and get a little more info on that, because again, I think it is a key component to handicapping. All right, let's shift our attention now, get back to the weekend Preakness. You were down in that direction. Just give us a little overview of how you thought the weekend went down there at Pimlico.
Well, after I washed my car 4 times yesterday or Monday to get all the mud off of it from Friday's edition, I realized just how tough the conditions were there in Maryland, and what a salute to the track maintenance and the facilities folks who put on such a great show on Saturday after an absolute deluge on Thursday and Friday. So, for the race to go off on a fast track with no real hitches, the turf races to go off in good, in fairly good conditions as well. A salute to the track crew there who really overcame the conditions. Bad weather, an old dilapidated facility, and yet a record crowd, handle up. I mean, the Preakness is really trending forward, and Tom Chukas and his staff down there really deserve a lot of credit. You heard a lot, even from the owners of California Chrome, about how well they were treated at the Preakness versus at the Kentucky Derby, and we'll see how, the horsemen feel that the group of New York treats them and things like that. But one thing we know about the Preakness, there is no better hospitality and no better run event than that event has been over the last 5 or 6 years. I just can't imagine how well they would do with an upgraded facility. Can you imagine a brand new sparkling Pimlico with that event, the kind of event that could be in horse racing? It really could top the Kentucky Derby in terms of on-track attendance, I think, if they had the facilities to pull it off, because 120,000 plus at that place, unbelievable.
And let me ask you before we get to the races themselves, because it certainly has come out now over the past few days, from the president of the Maryland Jockey Club. There's been some discussion about changing the calendar for the Triple Crown races. What are your thoughts?
If you would have asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been a traditionalist and said, blasphemy, no way in the world. I don't like the idea at all. But I will tell you this, I trust Tom Chukas so much with the way he has resurrected that Preakness, without the facility to do so, and what they've done. I mean, the way they've cleaned that infield up, it was an absolute zoo out there where somebody was going to get killed and there was going to be $1 billion lawsuit against the track. Now they've turned it into one of the Mid-Atlantic's absolute great concert destinations of the year, where they bet $1.5 million plus in the infield. This guy knows what he's doing. I mean, he has resurrected the Preakness and saved it. I mean, they talk about the man who saved the Preakness. It is Tom Chukas. So if Chukas thinks it's best for the Preakness to be a month after the Derby, I'm going to trust his judgment, because he really has pushed all the right buttons. And now I know part of the reason why they probably want to get that spacing is because they can feel the impact of this big card coming at Belmont. It's definitely going to have an impact on the undercard at the Preakness for many years to come. Horsemen aren't going to run in the races at Pimlico and then come back on this big summer Breeders' Cup type day that they're having for the Belmont Stakes undercard. So I think spacing those races out, I don't think it has as much to do with the horses coming out of the Derby to the Preakness. We saw the 1, 2, 4 finishers at the Preakness were horses coming out of the Derby, and I did some research for NBC. If you go back over the decades, the average number of horses coming out of the Derby to the Preakness has been about 4 over the years, no matter what decade that it is. So to have 3 this year feels a little bit light, but it's not drastically off. I mean, there haven't been a lot of years where we have 8, 9, 10 horses come out of the Derby into the Preakness. So traditionally, about 4 horses. This was a down year, but when there's a down year for the number of horses going from the Derby to the Preakness, it is almost always exactly directly correlated to how good the Derby winner was. When there's a favorite or a heavily bet horse or an impressive horse who wins the Derby, those are the years you only get 3, 4 horses show up at the Preakness. So I think it was as much staying away from California Chrome as it had anything to do with the 2-week turnaround. But I think that reaction of moving the Preakness is more about protecting the 11, 12 races on the undercard and those stakes versus the Belmont, which comes in 3 weeks, as much as it is anything to do with the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's take a look now at the Preakness itself and get some of your thoughts on this race. We'll watch them coming right out of the gate. And I said earlier on the Handicappers Report, reading the pundits over the past few days and thoughts after the race, it seems like everybody's unanimous, and Victor Espinoza did a great job down the stretch the first time, got his horse into a good position, and then there was just a lot of good luck as well. When maybe unexpectedly, Ria Antonio went up there and engaged Pablo Del Monte. That made his job a little bit easier. He sat in the catbird seat, but it was not necessarily an easy trip in that he had to get engaged probably earlier than he wanted to with social inclusion. And then, top of the stretch, I think everybody had to think Ride on Curlin stood a good chance to go on by, but was unable to do that. So I think it was an impressive performance in the Preakness from California Chrome.
It was. You know, when he moved this training location to Los Alamitos after Hollywood closed, his first race back, he broke like a quarter horse, and everybody kind of joked it was at Los Alamitos training, you know, going into him. He broke like a quarter horse again here in the Preakness. I mean, he was a length and a half in front of this field within about 3 jumps. But then he came right back to Victor, and Victor was able to move him out a little bit into the track and actually sit third going into the first turn. 99 out of 100 horses who break that fast and that sharp out of the gate will not come back to the rider. They're just kind of committed to going to the front at that point. And that's part of the beauty about this horse making his trip. You know, you don't get a perfect trip 6 times in a row. You know, you make your trip when you do it that many times in a row. And this horse, again, he broke clearly on top and then was able to pull back, let Pablo Del Monte cross over in front of him, let Ria Antonio run off, and then he just kind of sat there third and got that first over Cigar trip. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, you know. That's how Cigar rattled off 16 wins in a row with almost this identical trip. Sit third, go into the turn, go by him, and open up at the top of the lane. And that's how you run off a winning streak, and he's doing that. This was impressive. I don't think Ride on Curlin, if this race was a mile and a half, gets to him. You know, he seemed to hold that horse at bay, and the gallop out held everybody at bay until Victor saw the outrider and really started pulling the horse up, and then a few galloped out past him on the backstretch. But you know, this was a good performance. They weren't beating him on this particular day. That group of horses wasn't beating him no matter how far they ran. He was just the best horse and ran like it.
And 3 weeks out, you know, we're still early, but what are you looking for Belmont chances?
I'd like to see General A-Rod get another shot. You know, I've been on this horse probably since about New Year's Day. You know, I liked his race in that Gulfstream Derby to start the season on New Year's Day, and he had a terrible trip. I mean, he really got stymied. Ria Antonio kind of stopped and moved in front of him once or twice into the far turn, and he was moving right inside of California Chrome at the time, and lost about 6 positions all the way back to next to last, and then re-engaged in the stretch and came on again, and nobody galloped out better than General A-Rod. He galloped out best of all. He's got that Dynaformer on the bottom of his pedigree. I've kind of compared him to Perfect Drift over the years. Kind of horse who's just going to get a piece all the time if he gets any kind of trip at all and can run forever, I believe. So I'd like to see General A-Rod of the horses out of the Preakness. I would like him more than Ride on Curlin going to the Belmont based on pedigree and kind of what I saw on the back end of this race. I like the way General A-Rod ran, and I think he deserves a shot back. With Danza now out of the Belmont Stakes, you know, you kind of look at the commanding curves, and Wicked Strong, I think, obviously becomes the number one threat. I think if you're looking at, you know, the Belmont Stakes, arrested Wicked Strong, you know, getting to run at home in New York and basically walk out of his stall, you know, I think he would have to be considered the biggest threat now with Danza out, and Wicked Strong's probably the second post-time choice.
And I found it interesting also that Joel Rosario is electing not to come back on Ride on Curlin. John Velasquez is going to pick up the mount.
Yeah, you know, there's no crying in that. You know, you pick up Velasquez at Belmont. I mean, he's probably won more races at Belmont Park than any human being out there. So it's a good situation for Ride on Curlin to land on his feet with a new rider. With Tonalist big victory there, and you know, Ron Anderson is the jockey agent for Rosario. He's got to make a decision. You can ride a lot of good horses for Clement throughout the year, and you're not going to ride another horse for Billy Gowan other than Ride on Curlin.
Yeah.
So one of those decisions of, if you think Tonalist and Ride on Curlin are kind of similar in ability, you almost have to go the Clement route for future business. So I think it's a good move and a fairly predictable move. But you know, it's interesting to see John Velasquez land there, and and Intense Holiday maybe sitting there, for Pletcher in the Belmont Stakes yet, and Velasquez already committing away from that runner. So that's a pretty interesting move. And Angel must think that Right On Curlin has a pretty good shot to put his guy on there and not wait for Pletcher. So that's I think it's a good move for both horses.
And you make a great comment about Joel Rosario, because we see that every once in a while in these big races with a guy like a Pletcher, where a jockey will choose the Pletcher horse over maybe a horse that we all think, gee, that one maybe has a little more talent. But as you say, you want to be tied on to Pletcher the rest of the year.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. You got to make your bet and make your business with the guys who can get you the most money throughout the course of the year, unless you're just sitting on, one of those once-in-a-lifetime horses. Trust me, I mean, if he was riding California Chrome, Joel Rosario would not be jumping off the ride for anybody else in the country.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look. Another 3-year-old race on the undercard at Pimlico on the weekend was the Sir Barton. These are 3-year-olds for $100,000 going a mile and a 16th. Wanted to show this just again because it's that time of year, and these big days have the undercard stakes races with 3-year-olds who may turn out to be a little bit something as the year progresses. So we'll watch the stretch run of the Sir Barton. And this race was interesting to me because, Jeremy, I had Dynamic Impact right underneath. My call on the Preakness was California Chrome, Dynamic Impact, Right On Curlin. So I actually was kind of happy with I had that exacta for $18 because I used both of them underneath. But this race to me, we're now watching number 10 Class Leader is going to get it done in here as the 9-5 favorite in the Sir Barton. And this race, again, to me was interesting because when I wrote my write-up on this race, I said maybe we'll get a barometer on Dynamic Impact because Class Leader was coming out of a 4th-place finish in the Illinois Derby. The race Dynamic Impact won. Well, as it turned out, Class Leader gets it done and improves off of the Illinois Derby to get a nice win in the Sir Barton. Didn't work out quite so well for Dynamic Impact, but give us some thoughts on Class Leader in the Sir Barton.
A couple months ago when he won at Fairgrounds, I thought to myself, this looks like a Belmont Stakes horse, and I think I even wrote that after his maiden win or his allowance win at Fairgrounds in the Countdown to the Crown column, because he's got that long-distance pedigree, he's got a very patient trainer in Neil Howard, and he's got that grinding, come-get-you kind of style in the stretch that plays well to the Belmont Stakes. He's not a very big horse, though. He's kind of built a little bit more like a Turf Miler, a Pocket Rocket kind of horse, but he doesn't run that way, and he's not bred that way. He's bred to get distance. And so Howard has a horse here who I think would be an interesting horse for the Belmont Stakes, although the reaction after the race didn't seem like they were inclined to go that way, that they wanted to take it slower with him. So this could be a Super Derby kind of horse later in the year at Louisiana Downs, one of those types. Maybe get ready for the Travers later in the season. This is a pretty talented, long-winded horse who's not run into the ground at this point. And we've seen some horses on this Preakness undercard, Sarava, Painter. They didn't run in the big race, but then they came to the Belmont and made a little impact. If Class Leader has a couple good weeks, don't be shocked if he shows up in that Belmont Stakes field. And don't be shocked if he runs pretty well. I think he's a nice horse. Now, granted, he didn't beat a whole lot in this race at the Sir Barton. It wasn't a particularly deep race, but he got away much slower than you'd have expected, was farther back than you would expect, and still came on and got the job done. He was determined at the end. And again, where some of the other horses are going to fall short on pedigree, he won't. He's bred to run long.
All right, let's go over to the 3-year-old girls, and I just want to get your opinion on Friday's Black Eyed Susan. It was a Pletcher runner in here, Stop Charging Maria, who showed some ability certainly last year as a 2-year-old. Threw in a little bit of a dud last time in the fantasy before the race, just before the Black Eyed Susan. We'll watch them run down the stretch in the Black Eyed Susan. It will be number 4, Stop Charging Maria. The favorite in here was Sloan Square. That one runs a disappointing 9th in the field of 11. But Stop Charging Maria under Javier Castellano just gets up by a neck over 15-1 Vero Amore. Again, untappable, clearly the leader in this division, but it seems like Stop Charging Maria might be back on track.
Yeah, I can't figure the Pletcher horses out sometimes. I leaned to Sloan Square thinking it was the riser and that Stop Charging Maria was just a filly who beat, some 2-year-olds where she was a little more advanced last year and hadn't moved forward at 3, and I completely threw her out of this race. So in in the spirit of claiming that I'm not a know-it-all, I absolutely hated this horse in this race, and she went and won. So I couldn't have been more wrong about her. I thought she was kind of one of those win early 2-year-olds who was done. Obviously, she made her value as a brood mare worth a lot more now, as she's a graded stakes winner at 2, a graded stakes winner at 3. She's kind of written the book on her career at this point. If she doesn't want to do anything more, she's worth a lot more money than she was, going into the Black-Eyed Susan. So it was a good race for her, but she didn't beat much. And when you talk about the top of the division, Untappable would have beaten this field, by daylight, no question in my mind. I still don't know, how good Stop Charging Maria is, because I kind of went into it with a really negative opinion. And sometimes those horses, for any horse player, me especially, sometimes you got to get hammered over the head 3 or 4 times by somebody when you don't think they're as good as they are, and for them to prove it to you. So I'll probably still try to beat her the next time, and maybe even the next time after that. But at some point she'll prove to me she's as good as her resume looks, but I'm just not quite sure she's there yet.
All right, and finally, let's shift our attention to the Queen's Plate. And again, the Countdown to the Crown package that you put together on Fridays leading into the Derby was concentrating on the Derby and the Triple Crown. You've since added a package that looks at the Queen's Plate up at Woodbine, and there was a race on Saturday at Woodbine that could have some Queen's Plate implications. Let's talk a little bit about that. It was the Queenston, $150,000 stake, going 7 furlongs. We're going to watch the number 7, Spite Song, get it done. Spite Song for Malcolm Pierce just seems to be, now that we've gotten to the 3-year-old season, maybe an improved horse off of the 2-year-old to 3-year-old layoff, and now with a couple of races under the belt coming into this year, wins off here by 2.5 as the 3 to 5 favorite. And I'm looking your top 20 for the Queen's Plate. You had Spite Song at number 9 coming into the weekend. Give us your thoughts now coming out of this race as far as Spite Song and the Queen's Plate.
We don't know how far he's going to run, but he is a half-brother to last year's Queen's Plate runner-up up with the Birds. So pedigree-wise, he looks like he can get some distance. But Malcolm Pierce, even before this race and after the race, said he thinks he's got distance limitations, and he's not quite sure that he's going to take that plunge to the 1.25 miles. But on talent, he stacks up with any of these Ontario-bred and sired runners as one of the top 5 or 6 in the division. He beat the 2-year-old champion in Canada in this race in the Queenston. It was only 7 furlongs. He broke like a rocket. He really broke fast and really controlled this race the entire way. But it was a small field size. So we've got to see him go 2 turns. We've got to see Spite Song go 2 turns against good competition before you would make that commitment to 10 furlongs and say that he's a Queen's Plate winner type. But he's as talented as any group among that division in his peer group.
And I just want to mention at top of your list was We Miss Artie. And I'm wondering I guess the reasoning behind that, given that this horse ran a little bit of a dud in the Kentucky Derby. But that said, I think the horse ran better in the Kentucky Derby than a lot of us thought. Certainly outran its odds. So you still have We Miss Artie at the top of your rankings for the Queen's Plate.
Right, and he's got that such a good synthetic record, of course, and Woodbine's got the poly track, so he'll get back on a preferred surface. He split the field in the Kentucky Derby. He outran Intense Holiday. The horse who drilled him in the workout, and everybody said We Miss Artie doesn't belong in the Derby after getting drilled in the workout. So much for that. And then he came back and actually outfinished his stablemate Intense Holiday after getting his doors blown off in that workout. So, I think when you match him up, he's never been against straight Ontario-bred and sired horses. He's always been in open company and back on the poly track. I think that makes We Miss Artie the top horse. Javier Castellano is committed there. There's a couple good fillies, though. Paladin Bay, Laylarman. I think there's a couple fillies, and we've seen fillies do very well in the Queen's Plate historically. I think the fillies might be a little bit stronger than the boys when you look at that division in Canada.
All right, so we'll keep our eyes again on the Countdown to the Queen's Plate package as well, if folks go to horseplayernow.com. And again, that continues to be updated on Fridays?
Yeah, we'll do that every Friday through the Queen's Plate on July the 6th. So it'll run here for another month or so.
Sounds good. And Jeremy, just before I let you go, I wanted to ask, I'm an ESPN poll voter. My current top 5 that I sent in this past week: California Chrome, Ride on Curlin, Untappable, because it's not now limited to the males anymore, Danza, and Social Inclusion. I'm not sure about Danza at this point, whether I want him at number 4. But I'm just wondering if you had to put your top 3, what are you looking at right now?
Top three. I mean, obviously, California Chrome's number one. I would say Untappable probably two. And, you know, did Right on Curlin earn enough to be number three? Maybe. I would say Wicked Strong number three right now.
Okay, sounds good. We won't hold you to it, but I was just trying to get a feel.
I bail on the poll after the Derby. I just try to get him to the Derby. After that, I don't do a poll anymore. And that's probably why, because it gets harder, actually, after you've seen the Derby and the Preakness to try to evaluate where it all fits in.
Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. All right, Jeremy, as always, we appreciate the visit. Horseplayernow.com, Night School. We'll check in with you again next week, but we appreciate the thoughts for this week.
All right, have a great week.
Jeremy Plonk, again, horseplayernow.com, Night School. And again, you can check the archive of Night School. If you go to horseplayernow.com, you'll find a clickable link. Last night, a great topic, trainer and trainer angles. All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand Racing. We'll get some thoughts on their program for this afternoon, right after this.
This is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night School, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Casano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Very happy to be joined now by Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand Racing. If you watch their simulcast signal, you'll see her paddock commentary. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. Happy to have you on board. And if folks are going to play Indiana Grand this afternoon, what's your weather look like today?
It's beautiful today. We finally have had a couple days without rain, and it is warm and sunny, so a great day for racing.
That's what we always like to hear. And Rachel, it's that time of year, and we're only a few days after, so trying to get some thoughts from everybody. Big weekend of racing. Obviously, California Chrome wins the Preakness, now on the way to a Triple Crown. Certainly, racing is going to get some nice mainstream coverage for the next 3 weeks. What are your thoughts coming out of the Preakness?
Yeah, I love getting online, and reading all the stories, and you see all these tweets from ESPN covering horse racing. It makes me so happy. But, yeah, the Preakness, obviously, it's so exciting when you have a horse that 13 horses have won, the first 2 legs, but having someone that, go up for the Triple Crown is always exciting. You always want to root for that horse. So, and I think California Chrome, with Danza out, even has a stronger shot. And his nasal strips got okay, so he's on the path to righteousness now.
And typically, the Triple Crown races, Kentucky Derby Day, Preakness Day, and now with a Triple Crown on the line, it's not just Churchill Downs, Pimlico, Belmont, it really radiates out to all the simulcast facilities, all the OTBs and racetracks like yours. Did you have a nice day, a Preakness Day in Indiana?
Yes, it's really great when the Triple Crown races run because it's the one time where everyone, the one-time goer, the fan that is only for the big days comes out. So we had an excellent turnout, and it's so exciting when California Chrome was going across the finish line. Everyone is cheering like they're at a football game or whatever. It's just really exciting.
Yeah. There is no question about it. The big races, the big days like that, and then when the story plays out and the fans get into it, that makes it special. All right, Rachel. Before we actually take a look at some races, I just wanted to get some thoughts because we're a couple of weeks into the meet now, and so I just wanted to. I pulled up some stats and to just get your thoughts. Top jockeys, a couple of familiar names. Fernando de la Cruz, who was so hot early in the Tampa meet this year. Then he got hurt and cooled off a little bit. But, boy, he was off to a great start at Tampa. He's off to a nice start for you guys now out at Indiana. And, of course, Jeremy Rose is sitting at number 2. And he had a great meet at Turfway this winter as well. So a couple of familiar names there on the jockey side. On the trainer side, again, some familiar names. Tommy Amos on top, Marvin Johnson in second, Steve Asmussen in third. And I have to admit, out of those three, I was not that familiar with Marvin Johnson, but obviously we should be paying attention to him a little bit. And it seems like I looked him up. It seems like he's a guy who is out there plying his trade mainly in the Midwest and has been doing so for quite a while.
Yes, he has. I just read an article that he runs at Fauner, and so half the year he's in Fauner where his family is, and then he comes to Indiana every year. Marvin last year really killed it. And, in this industry, I've talked to him a lot about it. There's upswings and there's downswings. And, man, he's on an upswing. Last year, with half as many starts as Amos, he was second place. So he really just has been doing very, very well. He has great Indiana breds. And this year he's kind of looking to claim and get some different horses and stuff. He has a really nice horse, Alki Poker, and he's got a great group of horses. As far as jockeys are concerned, though, Fernando de la Cruz has 4 wins on the card, 3 or 4. I didn't look it up, but just yesterday. So Jeremy has been in the lead. He took an early lead, and then Fernando just killed it. So one of my picks today is totally, on the Fernando angle because he's hot right now, and when they're hot, you got to put money on them.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. When the guys get hot, you got to absolutely at least make an extra check mark in the positive column next to the horses you're looking at. All right, okay. Let's take a look at some of the action for this afternoon. You have a few ideas for us. Third race today at Indiana Grand is a state-bred allowance. Non-winners of 2 lifetime. The condition, these are 3-year-olds and up, and they're going to go 6 furlongs. What were your thoughts in the third?
I like the entries in the third, and I couldn't really decide between Indiana Express and Union Express, and then the Ronald Brown entry, and I went ahead and went with that on top. I like Beer with Fernando de la Cruz. That's the angle I'm playing here, and was placed second. That race was just, this 4-year-old gelding got beat up. 4-year-old gelding had a pass rush and was just going down the lane and was just got bumped repeatedly, as you can see in the comment, but that's an understatement. So it was placed second, and I think really didn't get to run his race. So I think coming out the second time is really going to be able to do a lot better. And then Lookout Cat with Jeremy Rose aboard. Obviously, Jeremy is a great jockey. I always like to play Jeremy. I was telling Peter Lurie on HRTV last week, or I actually texted and told him, I was like, hey, don't know too much about, I know who Jeremy Rose is. I haven't been able to bet on him. I don't have a lot of time to bet other tracks usually, but I put some money on Jeremy Rose, and he pays like 14-1. So I always put a few bucks on Jeremy because he's won me a lot of money.
I don't blame you. And I'm looking at the plain one. I like Beer. I always wonder what horses with names like that, whether you lose a point or two on the odds just on the name.
I know. That's what I tell people all the time. My personal mission in life is to get people, like younger people, just to be excited about horse racing, and I always tell them, they're asking me how to handicap it. I'm like, man, just put a couple dollars on the horse that you like its name, because you have just as much chance as I do to sit and look at this program for 3 hours than if you put it on a name you like.
Yeah, there's no question. Just to get started, I say the same thing. Play a 3-horse exacta box and play the numbers you like or whatever, and just get started and cash a few tickets, and that gets them in, and then they want to become a little more interested in actually learning the program and whatnot. But that's a great start, no question about it. 5th race at Indiana today, a state-bred allowance event, non-winners of 2 lifetime. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. And in the 5th, they're going to go 6 furlongs. What were your thoughts there?
You know, this is an interesting race, and there are a lot of horses that I've seen here, obviously. I really like Trisha's Trauma, and I don't think that she's gotten, on paper, she doesn't look as good as she really is. And, you know, the last start here at the meet, she just drew off and didn't finish there, had a bad stumble at the start, and they didn't really force her to do anything in that one. That Indiana Stallion Stakes here is a tough field, a field of 12. And, you know, she went up at 46-1 and got 3rd. So she is a really, really nice filly. She's named after one of my friends, actually, which is a funny story that I'll have to tell you later. But so Trisha's Trauma and Danny Koa, I mean, he is just a really great rider. And Ralph Martinez, he had kind of a slow year last year, but he's off to a really nice start this meet, and I think he's going to do really well.
Number 5, Trisha's Trauma in the 5th. Very good. And let's move on to race number 8 this afternoon. And I'm just scrolling through my tablet here. The 8th race is optional claimer with a money condition. Claiming tags $50,000. And in the 8th, these are 3-year-olds and up, and they'll go a mile. What were your thoughts there?
My thoughts on this race are it's going to be, I think a lot of people are going to play the Best Glacier, the Tom Amis entry, with Jeremy Rose. It's $286,000 lifetime winner. I mean, it looks really nice. It's moving up, though, and looking at some of the other races that's been in this kind of group has done good. But I'm honestly going to go with the 2, Congenial. Scott Becker, when he ships in, he just does really well. He's at a 26% clip shipper, and this one has early speed. I think that this one's going to like the dirt surface. It likes the route. It's back at a mile. I'm looking at the waiver claiming Oaklawn 50,000. I think that was a really nice race, and I think can run back to that and some of its other dirt tries at Oaklawn. I don't think like Turf and Poly as much, but has never started on Indiana dirt. But our track is really, it's hard to. My job is getting really fun and really hard because our track is not favoring anybody. Yesterday we had a $5,000 super. The first 2 horses paid over $40, so it's just been really fun to try to pick long shots. But I think Congenial is the one in the 8th race.
Well, you got an angle working that I like at this time of year, and I've said it here on the show for the past probably 6 weeks or so. I love horses coming out of the Oaklawn meet. I think that Oaklawn track adds some fitness, and I always think you got to pay a little bit of an extra attention to the Oaklawn shippers. For we're getting maybe to the end of that. It works for a month and a half, a couple of months or so, but I think this horse off of that angle is kind of interesting as well.
I think so too. I think you're right, and Bill agrees with me too. The Oaklawn horses, you hit the nail on the head there. I think they do really well.
And so, again, one of my angles working there. Number 2, Congenial, 6-1 on the morning line. We certainly like that. Rachel, we'll let you go. Absolutely. We appreciate the visit this afternoon, and we'll have you in as the season progresses. You and Bill Downs are going to rotate, so we're happy to have you on for your first visit, and we'll wish you luck this afternoon. We'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day, guys.
You too. Rachel McLaughlin from Indiana Grand. A little bit earlier was Jeremy Plonk from HorsePlayerNow.com and Night School, which wraps up the guest part of the program. We do have a few minutes left, though, so I will pop on over. As I said earlier, the NTRA poll, which comes out weekly, came out Monday afternoon, I think. And again, it's always interesting, particularly after the big weeks, to see how things change up. And at this time of year, the NTRA puts out 2 polls, just a general thoroughbred poll and also a 3-year-old poll. I think the 3-year-old poll stops after the Triple Crown. But the 3-year-old poll is interesting this week because California Chrome, the unanimous #1 selection on the NTRA poll. NTRA's The NTRA 3-year-old polls, top 5, California Chrome, Untappable, Danza, Ride On Curlin, and Wicked Strong. As I said earlier, my top 5 for the ESPN poll this week, pretty close. I have California Chrome, Ride On Curlin, Untappable, Danza, and Social Inclusion. So they've got Wicked Strong in the 5th spot. I have Social Inclusion. Otherwise, the top 4 pretty much the same. Now that said, as I mentioned earlier, with Danza now going to the sidelines, that would switch things up for me. And as I noted earlier, talking about that Danza story, Todd Pletcher says, we were happy with the workout, but we're sending them to Florida for an examination. Came out, we're happy with the workout, but the next day it didn't seem quite right. So the Danza situation, again, we'll see how that plays out, but that would certainly be enough to juggle up him on my top 10. It'll be interesting to see next week's NTRA poll, what they do as well. Now, their general thoroughbred poll, top 5 there for the NTRA this week. Wisdan, Palace Malice, California Chrome as a 3-year-old, number 3 on their poll. Number 4, Game On Dude, and Lee, number 5. So, and Beholder, I'll mention that one because female gets onto a couple of females. Untappable is on the list as well as number 9. So NTRA poll, again, after a big weekend, always interesting to take a look, and notable on the 3-year-old poll because California Chrome, not surprising. Only surprising because it always seems like there is some kind of naysayer out there. There's somebody that wants to put a fly in the ointment, but not in this case. California Chrome, the unanimous selection among the NTRA pollsters as the top 3-year-old. As we count down over the next almost 3 weeks to a shot at history and a Triple Crown, and we'll certainly talk a lot about that over the next few weeks here on Racing Across America. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this edition. Racing Across America is here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier on the Handicappers Report, Brian Nadeau and I took a look at Belmont and Delaware Park. So hopefully we gave you some good ideas. Enjoy the racing this afternoon. Let's all cash a few tickets. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.